determined your ceiling, and based on that arrogant assessment, they placed bets against you. Not out loud, of course. They're too diplomatic for that, too polite, too fake. But in the privacy of their group chats, in the safety of their whispered conversations, in the comfort of their collective delusion, they agreed. You wouldn't make it. You wouldn't heal. You wouldn't rise. You'd stay exactly where pain left you, frozen in trauma, marinating in defeat, serving as living proof that some people just don't have what it takes. Well, how's that prediction aging? How's that narrative holding up? How does it feel to be so catastrophically wrong about someone that your entire worldview has to adjust? See, here's what they fundamentally misunderstood about you. They thought your pain was your prison. They thought your struggles were your identity. They thought the lowest version of you they witnessed was the truest version, the permanent version, the only version that mattered. But pain was never your prison. It was your training ground. Your struggles weren't your identity, they were your curriculum. And that lowest version of you they saw, that wasn't your truth. That was your transformation in progress. That was the cocoon stage. That was the brutal, necessary season where everything old had to die so something unstoppable could be born. And born you were, not gradually, not slowly, not in a way they could track or control or feel comfortable observing. You emerged like an explosion, like a storm that doesn't announce itself until it's already reshaping the landscape. One moment they were watching you crawl through your darkest season, and the next moment you were flying so high they needed binoculars just to see your silhouette. That's not evolution. That's revolution. That's warfare. That's what happens when someone who was underestimated, overlooked, and written off decides to become undeniable. Your glow-up was an ambush because it operated on stealth mode. While they were busy analyzing your old chapters, you were writing new ones in a language they couldn't read. While they were gossiping about your past, you were engineering your future. While they were convinced you'd stay stuck, you were systematically dismantling every obstacle between you and your next level. You didn't announce your healing. You didn't broadcast your growth. You didn't perform your transformation for their entertainment or validation. You moved in silence. You built in private. You leveled up behind closed doors, where their opinions couldn't reach you and their doubts couldn't slow you down. And then, when you were ready, when you were solid, when you were so fundamentally transformed that there was no going back, you simply showed up. And the reveal was devastating. Not because you tried to hurt them, not because you needed revenge, but because your mere existence in this new form was a walking contradiction to every lie they told themselves about you, every judgment they made, every limit they tried to impose, every ceiling they tried to build above your head. Your presence alone shattered their entire framework of understanding. You became proof that they were wrong. And being wrong about you means confronting the possibility that they're wrong about themselves too. Let's talk about what they're feeling right now, shall we? Because this isn't just surprise. This isn't just shock. This is existential crisis disguised as curiosity. They're looking at you and experiencing cognitive dissonance so severe it's physically uncomfortable. The person they pitied is now the person they envy. The story they thought was over is now the story they can't stop reading. The life they wrote off is now the life they secretly wish they had the courage to build. And that creates a very specific kind of torture. The torture of missed opportunities. The torture of wasted time spent judging instead of growing. The torture of realizing they were spectators to greatness, and they spent the whole show rooting against you. Your transformation wasn't gradual because real transformation never is. Real change doesn't happen in comfortable increments. It happens in earthquakes, in breaking points, in moments where you either evolve or dissolve. And you chose evolution with such ferocity that the old version of you didn't just fade away, it was incinerated, completely, permanently, irreversibly. You didn't become a better version of who you were. You became someone entirely new, someone they have no reference point for, someone who operates on frequencies they can't detect and moves with strategies they can't predict. And that's what makes this an ambush. An ambush requires the element of surprise. It requires your enemy to be looking the other way, convinced of their safety, comfortable in their assumptions. And they were so comfortable, weren't they? So sure that you'd stay broken, so confident that your pain would be permanent, so convinced that they had you figured out, categorized, filed away in the box labeled people who didn't make it. But you were never in that box. You were outside of it the entire time, planning, preparing, transforming in dimensions they couldn't see because they were too busy staring at your surface. Now they're scrambling. Now they're rewriting their narratives. Now they're trying to act like they always knew you had potential, like they always believed in you, like they were rooting for you the whole time. But you remember, don't you? You remember the silence when you needed support. You remember the distance when you needed presence. You remember the judgment when you needed grace. You remember who showed up and who disappeared. You remember who celebrated your struggles and who mourned your victories, and that memory is permanent. That clarity is forever. That knowledge is power they can never take back. Your glow-up was warfare because it required strategy. It required discipline. It required you to fight battles no one saw, to overcome obstacles no one acknowledged, to survive nights no one knew about. You didn't just change, you conquered. You conquered doubt, you conquered fear, you conquered the version of yourself that believed their lies. You conquered the voice in your head that echoed their limitations. You conquered the part of you that wanted to stay small just to keep them comfortable. And each conquest, each victory, each transformation was a calculated strike against everything they said you'd never be. They wanted you to glow up on their timeline, slowly, safely, predictably, just enough to be acceptable but not enough to be threatening, just enough to be improved but not enough to be intimidating, just enough to be healed but not enough to be powerful. But you didn't consult their timeline. You didn't ask for their permission. You didn't wait for their approval. You operated on your own clock, in your own way, at your own pace, and when you finally revealed the results, it wasn't a gentle unveiling. It was a declaration of war on every low expectation they ever had. And here's the part that's truly destroying them. Your glow-up doesn't need their validation. It doesn't require their acknowledgement. It exists completely independent of their opinion. You're not glowing up for them. You're not transforming to prove them wrong. You're not rising to show them what they missed. You're doing all of this for you, because you deserve it, because you earned it, because you survived everything they said would destroy you and decided that survival wasn't enough. You wanted victory. You wanted dominance. You wanted to become so undeniably magnificent that even your enemies would have to admit, if only to themselves, that you won. Let me tell you what they see when they look at you now. They see competence where they expected chaos. They see confidence where they predicted insecurity. They see success where they forecasted failure. They see peace where they assumed permanent trauma. They see growth where they guaranteed stagnation. They see power where they promised powerlessness. They see everything they said you'd never have, never be, never achieve. And it's not just confusing to them, it's offensive. Because your transformation implies that they were wrong. And people who build their entire identity on being right, on being superior, on being the ones who can spot weakness from a mile away, they cannot handle being wrong. Your glow-up was an ambush, because ambushes are designed to overwhelm, to shock, to disable the enemy's ability to respond effectively. And that's exactly what happened. They're overwhelmed by how far you've come. They're shocked by how much you've changed. They're disabled in their ability to respond, because everything they prepared, every criticism they had ready, every judgment they wanted to deploy, it's all obsolete now. You're not the person they rehearsed their opinions about. You're someone completely different. someone they have no weapons against, because you're not fighting on their battlefield anymore. You changed the entire game. Now, let's address the narrative they're trying to build right now. They're saying you got lucky. They're saying you had help they didn't have. They're saying timing was on your side. They're saying the universe favored you. They're saying anything, everything, to avoid saying the truth that you were stronger than they gave you credit for, that you were smarter than they assumed, that you had depths they never took the time to explore, that you possessed resilience they couldn't fathom because they've never been tested the way you were tested. They'd rather rewrite reality than admit they underestimated you. They'd rather create fiction than face the fact that you outworked, outthought, and out-transformed every limitation they tried to put on you. But here's what's eating them more than anything else. It's not just that you glowed up. It's how you glowed up. With dignity, without bitterness poisoning your spirit, without revenge consuming your mind, without hatred hardening your heart. You could have become cruel. You could have become cold. You could have let their treatment of you justify treating others badly. But you didn't. You became better instead of bitter. You became powerful instead of poisonous. You became elevated instead of vindictive. And that graceful, dignified, unstoppable rise, that's the ambush they never saw coming, because they expected you to break. Instead, you became unbreakable. Your transformation wasn't just physical, was it? Sure, you might look different. You might carry yourself differently. You might dress differently, speak differently, move through the world differently. But the real glow-up happened internally. You rewired your mind. You reconstructed your beliefs. You rebuilt your relationship with yourself. You transformed your trauma into wisdom. You converted your pain into power. You alchemied your struggles into strengths. You took everything that was meant to destroy you and used it as raw material to construct the most powerful version of yourself that's ever existed. And that's why this was warfare. War isn't pretty. War isn't comfortable. War requires sacrifice. It requires you to kill parts of yourself that no longer serve you. It requires you to burn bridges to old versions of yourself. It requires you to make choices that hurt in the moment but save you in the long run. You were at war with your own limitations. You were at war with their expectations. You were at war with the voice of doubt. You were at war with the comfort of staying small. And you won every single battle. They're watching you now with mixed emotions. Part fascination, part fear, part envy, part regret. They're fascinated by how you did it, but too proud to ask. They're afraid of what you'll become next, because if you can transform this dramatically once, you can do it again. They're envious of your freedom, your peace, your power, your presence, and they're drowning in regret. Regret for underestimating you, regret for not supporting you, regret for not being part of your story in a meaningful way, regret for choosing judgment over understanding, regret for being spectators when they could have been students. Your glow-up was an ambush because it came from nowhere and everywhere at once. It came from the midnight hours where you cried and prayed and fought invisible battles. It came from the mornings you forced yourself out of bed when staying down felt easier. It came from the decisions you made in private to choose growth over comfort. It came from the conversations you had with yourself where you rewrote limiting beliefs. It came from the courage you summoned to walk away from people and situations that felt familiar but were fundamentally toxic. It accumulated in silence, in darkness, in spaces they couldn't see, until it reached critical mass and exploded into undeniable visibility. Now they want access. Now they want proximity. Now they want to be associated with your success. Now they want to claim they always knew you'd make it. Now they want to rewrite history and pretend they were supportive when you remember the truth of who showed up and who vanished, the truth of who celebrated and who sabotaged, the truth of who believed and who betrayed, and you're under no obligation to let them revise the narrative. You're under no obligation to welcome back people who abandoned you when you needed them most. You're under no obligation to make them comfortable with your transformation. Let's talk about what happens next. Because this ambush, this glow-up, this transformation, it's not the ending, it's the beginning. You didn't rise to this level to plateau. You didn't transform this dramatically to maintain. You didn't become this powerful to stay stagnant. This is just the foundation. This is just the warm-up. This is just the preview of what you're capable of when you stop listening to limits and start living in possibility. They think what they're seeing now is shocking. Wait until they see what you become when you fully step into your potential without apology, without hesitation, without compromise. Your glow-up wasn't gradual because you're not a gradual person. You're an all-or-nothing force of nature. You're someone who doesn't do anything halfway. When you commit completely. When you transform thoroughly. When you evolve radically. That's not a flaw. That's your superpower. That's what makes you dangerous to people who are comfortable with mediocrity. That's what makes you intimidating to people who are satisfied with incremental change. You operate on a different frequency. You move at a different speed. You play a different game entirely. And the game you're playing now, they don't even have the rule book for. They're trying to compete with strategies that don't apply to your battlefield. They're trying to judge you by standards that don't measure your dimension. They're trying to understand you through frameworks that weren't built to contain your magnitude. You've outgrown their comprehension. You've exceeded their capacity to categorize. You've become something they have no previous experience with. And that's precisely why this feels like an ambush to them. Because you can't prepare for something you can't predict. You can't defend against something you can't see coming. Now, here's your truth. Your glow-up didn't happen to impress them. It didn't happen to prove them wrong. It didn't happen to make them regret losing you. It happened because you made a decision. A decision to stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the architect of your destiny. A decision to stop accepting the life you were living and start creating the life you deserve. A decision to stop asking for permission and start granting yourself approval. That decision, that singular moment of choosing yourself over their comfort, that was the detonation point. That was the ambush launch. That was the beginning of the end of the old you and the birth of the unstoppable you. They're going to try to take credit. They're going to claim their doubt motivated you. They're going to say their criticism pushed you. They're going to pretend their abandonment made you stronger. Don't let them. Don't give them that power. Don't allow them to rewrite their role in your story from antagonist to accidental catalyst. You did this. You made the choices. You put in the work. You fought the battles. You conquered the demons. You rose when rising felt impossible. This is your victory, your transformation, your ambush. They were just the background noise you had to learn to tune out. And tune them out you did. So completely, so thoroughly, so effectively that they're now screaming into the void, hoping you'll hear them, hoping you'll acknowledge them, hoping you'll give them the attention they once took for granted. But your frequency changed. You're operating on channels they can't access. You're living in realities they can't reach. You're existing in dimensions they can't penetrate. And that distance, that unreachable quality, that's not accidental. That's strategic. That's protective. That's necessary. Because where you're going, the energy they carry would only slow you down. Look who finally made their attorney sweat through a $900 suit. Welcome back, you beautiful, meticulous, paper trail-keeping legends. Welcome to the moment where silence became evidence, where your patience became prosecution, and where every screenshot, every timestamp, every documented conversation just became a weapon they can't defend against. You know what happened, don't you? Their lawyer looked at your receipts. And for the first time in their miserable, entitled lives, they got told something they weren't prepared to hear. You need to apologize, immediately. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready. Right now. Before this becomes a case we cannot win. And oh, the panic, oh, the scrambling, oh, the late-night phone calls where their voices cracked like brittle glass. Because you see, they thought you were bluffing. They thought you were too hurt, too broken, too soft to actually keep records. They thought your silence was defeat. They thought your distance was surrender. But the whole time you were building, you were archiving. You were turning every lie they told into exhibit A, B, C, and straight through the alphabet into courtroom chaos. They mocked your obsession with details. They laughed when you asked for things in writing. They rolled their eyes when you documented dates, times, and exact words spoken. But now their lawyer is staring at a file so airtight, so meticulously organized, so legally devastating that the only advice left is damage control. Apologize now, or face consequences you cannot afford. Let me tell you what really happened behind those closed doors, inside that law office with the leather chairs and the mahogany desk, where their bravado finally died. Their lawyer, a professional who's seen it all, liars, cheaters, frauds, manipulators, sat down with your evidence. And page by page, screenshot by screenshot, email by email, the color drained from their face. Not because you were lying, but because you weren't. Not because your case was weak, but because it was bulletproof. Every text message time-stamped, every promise recorded, every contradiction highlighted, every witness ready, every loophole closed. This wasn't just documentation. This was warfare in manila folders. And their attorney knew immediately that this was not a fight they could win. So they did what any competent lawyer does when facing an unbeatable case. They told their client the truth. You are screwed. Unless you grovel, unless you apologize publicly, sincerely, immediately, this will destroy you. Financially, legally, reputationally, forever. And you know what the most beautiful part is? You didn't do this out of spite. You did this out of principle. You didn't keep receipts to hurt them. You kept them to protect the truth. Because while they were busy rewriting history, you were preserving it. While they were deleting messages, you were backing them up. While they were coaching their friends to lie, you were securing testimonies. You played chess while they were still figuring out checkers. And now the board is cleared, the king is in check, and their only move is surrender. They underestimated you. That was their first mistake. They thought because you cried, you were weak. They thought because you walked away, you gave up. They thought because you stopped arguing, you lost. But you were never weak. You were strategic. You weren't giving up. You were gearing up. You weren't losing. You were collecting evidence for the trial they didn't even know was coming. And now their lawyer has painted them the picture. A courtroom, a judge. Your evidence projected on screens. Their lies exposed in 4K clarity. Their contradictions read aloud by a prosecutor who doesn't care about their excuses. The humiliation, the penalties, the irreversible damage to their name, their career, their future. And after all that horror, after watching them sweat, after seeing them realize that you were 10 steps ahead the entire time, the lawyer leaned forward and said the words that made them go pale. The only way out of this is a sincere public apology, immediately. No excuses, no deflection, no half-truths. You wronged them. You admit it. You apologize. You mean it. Or we go to court and you lose everything. You want to know what power looks like? It's not yelling. It's not threatening. It's not begging for justice. Power is sitting in silence while their own attorney tells them they're guilty. Power is watching your abuser get legal advice that starts with, "You have no defense." Power is knowing that every lie they told is now documented proof. Every gaslighting attempt, recorded. Every manipulation, timestamped. Every betrayal, verified by third parties who will testify under oath. Let's talk about what you endured while building this case, shall we? Because it wasn't easy. You didn't just wake up one day and decide to keep receipts. No, this was survival instinct. This was pattern recognition. This was you realizing that their version of events kept shifting, kept changing, kept evolving to fit their narrative. So you started taking notes. Not out of paranoia, but out of clarity. You started screenshotting, not to weaponize, but to remember the truth when they tried to rewrite it. You started saving voicemails, emails, text threads, not because you wanted revenge, but because you wanted proof. Proof that you weren't crazy, proof that you weren't imagining things, proof that what they said on Monday directly contradicted what they swore on Friday. And piece by piece, conversation by conversation, lie by lie, you built a case so strong that even the most expensive lawyer in the city had to put their pen down and say, "I can't defend this." Do you understand how rare that is? Lawyers defend guilty people all the time. That's the job. But when the evidence is so overwhelming, so clear, so undeniable, that even a legal professional tells their client, "You need to apologize before this ruins you," that's not just winning, that's domination. That's you turning their betrayal into their undoing. That's you taking every ounce of pain they caused and converting it into legal ammunition they cannot survive. And now let's talk about their panic, because, oh, it's delicious. Imagine them sitting in that chair, confident at first, thinking their lawyer would find a way out, some loophole, some technicality, some spin. But as the lawyer flipped through your evidence, their confidence evaporated. Wait, they have proof of that too? How did they get a copy of this? I thought we deleted that conversation. I didn't think they were paying attention to dates. Every sentence out of their mouth, digging them deeper. Every excuse, making them look worse. And their lawyer, growing more frustrated by the second, finally snapped. "Stop talking. Every word you say makes this worse. They have everything. Every lie you told me, they can disprove. Every story you spun, they have witnesses to contradict. Every timeline you fabricated, they have timestamps to expose. You are not the victim here. You are the defendant. And the evidence against you is damning." Can you imagine that moment? The moment they realized you weren't just hurt, you were prepared. The moment they understood you didn't just walk away crying. You walked away planning. You didn't just survive their abuse. You documented it with the precision of a prosecutor. They thought you were broken. You were building a case. They thought you were silent. You were compiling evidence. They thought you were defeated. You were organizing your exhibits. And now the only advice their $500 an hour attorney can give them is, beg for forgiveness. Now, let me tell you what this apology will look like. Because it won't be pretty. It won't be some casual, "Hey, sorry if I hurt you" nonsense. No, their lawyer will draft something. Something legal. Something that admits fault without saying too much. Something that covers their liability while acknowledging their guilt. It'll be reviewed, revised, sanitized. But even in its corporate, emotionless language, it will say what you always knew. "I was wrong. You were right. I owe you an apology." And they will deliver it, not because they want to, not because they feel genuine remorse, but because their lawyer explained the alternative: public exposure, legal consequences, financial ruin, permanent damage. They will apologize because not apologizing means losing everything. And that, my friend, is the sweetest kind of justice. Not revenge, just truth, armed with proof, delivered by their own legal counsel. You didn't have to scream, you didn't have to beg, you didn't have to convince anyone. The evidence spoke for itself. And it spoke so loudly that even a lawyer trained to defend the guilty said, "There's no defense here." But let's go deeper, because this isn't just about one apology. This is about the shift, the power shift, the narrative shift, the energy shift. For so long, they controlled the story. They told people you were crazy, dramatic, too sensitive, too emotional. They painted themselves as the victim. They made you the villain in a story they completely fabricated. And for a while, maybe people believed them. Maybe mutual friends picked sides. Maybe some people distanced themselves from you, believing their lies. But now the truth has a lawyer's signature on it. Now their lies have legal consequences. Now every person who doubted you has to reckon with the fact that a legal professional looked at the evidence and told them to apologize immediately. Not suggested, told, not recommended, demanded. Because the proof was so overwhelming, so undeniable, that continuing to lie would result in legal action they could not survive. And suddenly, the people who doubted you are quiet. Suddenly, the ones who took their side are reconsidering. Suddenly, the narrative is flipping, and they are the ones being questioned. Wait, if their own lawyer said to apologize, what did they really do? If the evidence was that strong, were we wrong about them? Did we believe a lie? Yes, they did. But you don't need to say it. The receipts did. Now let's talk about you, because this moment isn't just about their downfall. It's about your validation. For months, maybe years, you questioned yourself. Am I overreacting? Am I remembering this wrong? Maybe I am too sensitive. They made you doubt your reality. They made you second-guess your memory. They gaslit you so thoroughly that you started to wonder if you were the problem. But you weren't, and now you have legal confirmation. A professional, someone trained in law, evidence, and truth, looked at your documentation and said, "This person was wronged, objectively, legally, undeniably." That's not just validation, that's vindication. That's the universe, through the mouth of an attorney, telling you, you were right, your instincts were right. Your pain was valid, your anger was justified, and your silence was strategic brilliance. You didn't need to prove yourself to everyone. You just needed to prove yourself to the one person whose opinion mattered in a legal context. And you did, with timestamps, with screenshots, with voice recordings, with testimonies, with a paper trail so clean, so thorough, so devastating that even their own defense attorney became your strongest witness, because they had no choice but to tell the truth. Your client is guilty, the evidence is clear. Apologize now, or face the consequences. And here's the part that makes this even more powerful. You didn't do this for revenge. You did this for peace. You didn't keep receipts to destroy them. You kept them to protect yourself. Because you knew that people like them don't change. People like them rewrite history. People like them gaslight, manipulate, and lie until the truth becomes whatever they need it to be. So you protected the truth. You archived reality. You made sure that no matter how much they lied, no matter how much they twisted the story, no matter how many people they convinced, the evidence would remain unchangeable, undeniable, undefeated. And that evidence just saved you from years of being labeled the villain. That evidence just forced them to admit what they would never admit willingly. That evidence just gave you the closure you deserved, not through their genuine remorse, but through legal necessity. They have to apologize, not because they want to, because they have no other choice. And that is the most satisfying kind of justice. So what happens next? Well, they apologize, publicly or privately, depending on what their lawyer negotiates. But the apology will come. It has to. Because the alternative is a lawsuit they will lose. A court case that will expose every lie they told. A public trial that will humiliate them in ways they can't recover from. Their lawyer made that very clear. Apologize now, or lose everything later. So, they'll swallow their pride. They'll choke on their ego. They'll type out words they don't mean, or read from a script their lawyer wrote. And they'll deliver the apology you always deserved. And you don't have to accept it. You don't have to forgive them. You don't have to let them back into your life. Because this apology isn't for reconciliation. It's for legal protection. It's them admitting fault to avoid worse consequences. And that's enough. You don't need their love. You don't need their friendship. You don't need their genuine remorse. You just needed them to admit the truth, and their lawyer just forced them to do exactly that. Check, mate, game over. But let's not stop there. Let's talk about the ripple effect. Because this apology, this forced admission of guilt, it doesn't just affect them. It affects everyone who believed their lies. Everyone who took their side. Everyone who doubted you, dismissed you, gaslit you. Now, they have to sit with the uncomfortable truth. If their own lawyer said they were wrong, then maybe I was wrong too. Maybe I believed a liar. Maybe I hurt someone who was telling the truth all along. And some of them will reach out. Some will apologize. Some will try to make amends. And you get to decide who deserves your grace. You get to decide who gets a second chance. You get to decide who stays blocked, deleted, erased from your life forever. Because now you hold all the power. You're not the one begging to be believed. You're the one with legal proof. You're not the one defending your truth. Your truth defended itself. You're not the one asking for apologies. You're the one receiving them, forced or not, and deciding what to do with them. That's power. That's evolution. That's you, standing in the aftermath of their downfall, unbothered, unshaken, holding receipts in one hand and peace in the other. And here's the beautiful irony. They tried to destroy you. They tried to break you. They tried to erase you from the narrative and paint themselves as innocent. But in doing so, they gave you everything you needed to destroy them. Every lie they told became evidence. Every gaslighting attempt became proof. Every manipulation became an exhibit. They built your case for you. They handed you the ammunition. They loaded the gun, aimed it at themselves, and then wondered why it fired. You didn't have to chase them. You didn't have to fight them. You just had to document them. And documentation, in the hands of a lawyer, becomes devastation. Their lawyer saw that. Their lawyer understood that. And their lawyer, protecting their own reputation and career, told them the truth they didn't want to hear. You can't win this. Apologize. Now. So let's take a moment to appreciate the journey. You walked through fire. You endured betrayal. You survived gaslighting. You lived through lies. You carried pain that no one should have to carry. And instead of letting it consume you, you turned it into evidence. Instead of letting it break you, you let it build your case. Instead of screaming into the void, you filed everything away, organized, labeled, time-stamped, ready for the moment it would be needed. And that moment came, in a lawyer's office, where your abuser sat across from their attorney and heard the words that shattered their illusion of control. They have everything, every message, every lie, every contradiction. You have no defense. Apologize immediately, or face legal consequences you cannot afford. You won, not by being louder, not by being meaner, not by stooping to their level. You won by being smarter, by being prepared, by being patient. You won because while they were busy lying, you were busy documenting. While they were deleting evidence, you were preserving it. While they were convincing others, you were securing proof. And now, their own lawyer is your greatest ally, not by choice, but by necessity. Let's talk about what this means for your future, because this isn't just a win, this is a standard, this is a precedent. This is you setting the tone for how you will be treated moving forward. Anyone who tries to lie to you, documented. Anyone who tries to gaslight you, recorded. Anyone who tries to manipulate you, archived. You've learned the power of receipts. You've learned that silence with evidence is more powerful than screaming without it. You've learned that patience, strategy, and organization can dismantle even the most confident liar. And that lesson, that skill, that instinct, it stays with you forever. You're not the same person you were before this. You're sharper. You're wiser. You're untouchable in ways they can't comprehend. Because now you know how to protect yourself, not with walls, but with documentation, not with aggression, but with proof, not with revenge, but with truth, legally backed, impossible to deny. And that makes you dangerous, not in a violent way, but in a way that liars, manipulators, and abusers fear most. You can't be gaslit because you have proof. You can't be silenced because you have evidence. You can't be rewritten because you archive the truth. And that is the most powerful version of yourself. So here's what you do next. You let them apologize. You read it, or hear it, or receive it however it comes. You acknowledge it, not with gratitude, not with forgiveness, just with acknowledgement. I received your apology. That's it. You don't owe them absolution. You don't owe them a second chance. You don't owe them peace of mind. They made their choices. They told their lies. They hurt you intentionally. And now they're facing the consequences. Not because you destroyed them, but because the truth did. And you were just the keeper of that truth. The archivist, the witness, the one who refused to let lies become history. So let them apologize. Let them squirm. Let them live with the knowledge that their own lawyer told them they were wrong, and you move forward. Not bitter, not broken, but victorious. Because you didn't just survive their betrayal. You turned it into a case study on how to dismantle a liar with nothing but receipts, patience, and the truth. And let's not forget the lesson this teaches everyone watching. Because people are watching. They always are. And what they just witnessed is this: lies have expiration dates. Manipulators eventually meet their match. Gaslighters eventually face reality. And the people who stay quiet, who keep receipts, who document everything, who refuse to engage in screaming matches because they're building legal cases, those people always win in the end. Not loudly. Not messily, but decisively. Legally. Permanently. You just became the cautionary tale for every liar in your circle. Don't mess with them. They keep receipts. They're lawyer-level receipts. The kind that get reviewed by actual attorneys who then force you to apologize or face legal ruin. That's your reputation now. Not crazy, not bitter, not overly sensitive, but meticulous, strategic. Someone who doesn't argue with liars because they let evidence do the talking. And evidence, when organized and presented correctly, is undefeated. Oh, look who walked in looking like revenge wrapped in skin. You absolute weapon, you glorious, unstoppable force of nature. Welcome back, or should I say, welcome to the aftermath. Because anyone still watching this, you're not the same person who started this journey. You're the plot twist they never saw coming. The upgrade they couldn't predict. The transformation they don't have the vocabulary to describe. Let's be brutally honest here. They were expecting evolution. Slow, steady, predictable growth. Maybe a new haircut. Maybe some confidence. Maybe a little glow. But what you delivered, what you became, wasn't a glow-up. It was an invasion. A hostile takeover of your own narrative. A complete demolition of every expectation they had filed away in their narrow little minds about who you were supposed to be forever. They watched you struggle. They saw you at your lowest, broken, confused, doubting everything, including your own reflection. And in those moments, in those dark, suffocating chapters of your story, they made a fatal mistake. They documented your pain like it was permanent. They screenshotted your vulnerability like it was your identity. They wrote you off like you were a finished book, a closed case, a cautionary tale they could reference whenever they needed to feel better about their own stagnation. But you were never writing an epilogue. You were planning a resurrection so violent, so complete, so